Dr. Sarah Chen held her breath as the massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber swung open. The room was filled with beings from across the universe, some glowing with energy, others existing as pure consciousness in crystalline forms. As Earth's representative, she looked small and primitive compared to these advanced species. The council met in a vast circular chamber built from star metal, its walls showing real-time images of different galaxies. Sarah's simple blue uniform and human form drew quiet chuckles from the assembled aliens. She had grown used to their mockery over the past year. The humans wished to speak about dimensional travel again, announced High Counselor Vathek, his energy form pulsing with amusement. They claimed to have made progress. More laughter filled the chamber. A crystalline being called Zikazura floated forward, its facets gleaming. Perhaps they have invented a new chemical rocket, it said, causing several council members to burst into what humans would call giggles. Sarah stood straight, her dark eyes calm. She remembered the message she had received that morning. Prometheus is ready. But she kept her face neutral, years of practice hiding her thoughts from the telepathic species around her. "We have made some advances in quantum physics," she said simply, her voice steady. The council chamber's universal translator conveyed her words to all present beings. "Quantum physics," snorted a gaseous entity named Reth-Il. "Your species barely understands 4 dimensions. We mastered quantum mechanics millennia ago." Sarah nodded politely. "We are aware of our limitations," she said. The humans had carefully cultivated this image of themselves, humble, slightly backward, but eager to learn. It had been Earth's greatest deception. High Counselor Vathek waved a tendril of energy dismissively. "The Council has more important matters to discuss. The Zaxkir Empire's movements near the Orion sector require our attention." As the Council moved on to other topics, Sarah's mind drifted to the secret facility inside Jupiter's atmosphere. There, hidden by the gas giant's storms, humanity's greatest achievement waited. The Prometheus wasn't just a ship, it was proof that humans had understood something the other species had missed. She remembered the day Dr. Rodriguez had made the breakthrough. "They're all thinking too complicated," he had said, his eyes bright with excitement. "The 7th dimension isn't about complex math, it's about perspective. Humans are naturally good at seeing patterns others miss." That discovery had led to the Prometheus project. While other species built massive engines and complex drives, humans had found a simpler way. The 7th dimension wasn't about forcing reality to bend. It was about understanding how it already moved. Sarah's communicator buzzed silently against her wrist. A text message scrolled across her retinal implant. "Final tests successful. All systems green." She allowed herself a small smile. Around her, the Council continued their serious discussion about the Zaxkir threat. These beings, with their advanced technology and ancient civilizations, had no idea what was coming. They saw humans as primitive newcomers, barely worth noticing. That was exactly what Earth had wanted them to think. As the session ended, High Counselor Vathek approached Sarah. His energy form towered over her, radiating subtle superiority. "We appreciate Earth's continued interest in galactic affairs," he said condescendingly, "but perhaps you should focus on developing your planetary defense systems. The galaxy can be dangerous for young species." Sarah bowed slightly. "Thank you for your concern, High Counselor. We will take your advice seriously." As she walked out of the chamber, past the smirking and laughing advanced beings, Sarah thought about the Prometheus. Soon, very soon, the laughter would stop. Earth hadn't just discovered 7th dimensional travel. They had mastered it. The galaxy was about to learn that sometimes the quietest species were the most dangerous. Hidden within Jupiter's swirling storms, the Prometheus waited. Captain Miguel Torres stood at the observation deck, watching his ship's crystalline hull shimmer as it phased between dimensions. Even after 6 months of training, the sight still amazed him. "Captain, all systems are ready for the final test," said Lieutenant Emma Wong through the ship's comm system. Her voice carried the excitement they all felt. The Prometheus wasn't like other ships. Instead of the bulky metal designs used by alien races, it looked more like a massive diamond with smooth, flowing lines. Its surface constantly shifted, parts of it seeming to disappear and reappear as it existed in multiple dimensions at once. "Begin power-up sequence," Torres ordered. He walked to the bridge, his footsteps silent on the smart metal floor. The crew of 20, Earth's best and brightest, worked at their stations. Each had been chosen not just for their skills, but for their ability to think in new ways. Holographic displays filled the air, showing the ship's unique power systems. Unlike the massive engines other species used, Prometheus ran on something much simpler: understanding. Understanding of how dimensions naturally flowed into each other, like water finding its path downhill. "Power at 20%, reported Chief Engineer Kumar. His fingers danced over the controls. "The dimensional field is stable. No signs of detection from the Jovian monitoring stations." Earth had hidden the project well. While alien satellites watched Earth's surface for signs of advanced technology, no one thought to look carefully at Jupiter. They assumed humans couldn't survive in the gas giant's harsh environment. They were wrong. "Power at 50%, Kumar continued. "Seventh dimensional interfaces engaging." Torres felt the familiar tingle as the ship began to shift. Around them, reality seemed to flex. Through the view screens, he could see Jupiter's storms from 7 different dimensional perspectives at once. It had taken months of training for the crew to handle these views without getting sick. "Sir, we're receiving a priority message from Earth Command," Lieutenant Wong announced. Dr. Chen's transmission from the Galactic Council. "The Zaxcure Empire has launched attacks on our outer colonies." Torres's jaw tightened. They weren't supposed to reveal themselves yet. The ship needed more testing, but their people were in danger. "Power at 100%, Kumar reported. "All systems nominal." Torres looked at his crew. They had trained for this, prepared for this moment. In their simple blue uniforms, they looked nothing like the advanced species that mocked Earth. But they had something those species didn't. They understood the true nature of dimensions. "Send confirmation to Earth Command," Torres ordered. "Prometheus is ready for combat deployment." The ship's crystalline structure hummed with power. On the screens, Jupiter's storms raged, but the Prometheus remained perfectly stable. This was what humans did best: taking simple principles and using them in ways no one else had imagined. "Plot a course to the Orion colonies," Torres commanded. "Prepare for 7th dimensional transit." As the crew worked, Torres thought about the aliens who had laughed at Earth's claims. They expected humans to build huge engines, complex power systems, and massive weapons. Instead, humans had built something elegant, something simple, something devastating. "Course plotted, sir," Wong reported. "Ready for dimensional shift." Torres took a deep breath. This was the moment that would change everything. The moment when humanity would show the galaxy what they had quietly achieved. "Engage dimensional drive," he ordered. "Let's show them what primitive humans can do." The Prometheus shifted, its crystalline form sliding between dimensions like water through stones. In moments, they would arrive at the colonies, and the galaxy would never laugh at humanity again. The human colony on New Eden burned. From orbit, the Zaxcure warships looked like giant black spiders, their energy weapons cutting red lines through the planet's atmosphere. Thousands of colonists huddled in underground shelters, watching their homes turn to ash. Admiral Xar Kath of the Zaxcure Empire stood on his command ship's bridge, his scaled skin gleaming under the harsh lights. "These humans are weaker than we expected," he said, sharp teeth showing in what passed for a smile among his species. "Their defenses are primitive." On his main screen, reports showed similar attacks happening on 6 other human colonies. The Galactic Council had refused to help, seeing this as a chance to put the upstart humans in their place. No one expected Earth to be able to defend its outer worlds. "Admiral," called one of his officers, "we're detecting an unusual energy reading approaching New Eden." Tharkath waved a clawed hand dismissively. Probably another of their chemical rockets. Continue the attack. In the colony below, Sarah Martinez clutched her children close in the emergency bunker. The ground shook with each Zaxker bombardment. Around her, other colonists prayed or wept quietly. Their planetary defense ships had been destroyed in the first wave of the attack. "Mommy, I'm scared," whispered her 6-year-old daughter Anna. "It's going to be okay," Sarah promised, though she didn't know how. Their communications with Earth had been cut off. They were alone. Then something changed. In the space between New Eden and the Zaxker fleet, reality itself seemed to ripple. A shape emerged, crystalline, beautiful, and impossible. The Prometheus had arrived. On the Zaxker command ship, alarms began to sound. "Admiral," shouted an officer, "the object. Our sensors can't lock onto it. It exists in multiple dimensional states simultaneously." Tharkath stood, his confidence replaced by confusion. This wasn't primitive human technology. This was something else entirely. Captain Torres's voice broadcasted across all frequencies. "This is the Earth ship Prometheus to the Zaxker fleet. You are attacking peaceful colonies. Withdraw immediately." The Zaxker admiral laughed, though with less certainty than before. "One ship against our fleet. Your bravery is admirable, but foolish." He turned to his weapons officer. "Destroy them." 100 energy beams fired at the Prometheus. They passed right through it, hitting nothing. The ship existed in the 7th dimension, untouchable by conventional weapons. "Final warning," Torres transmitted. "Withdraw, or we will demonstrate why you should have taken humanity seriously." In the colony bunker, the ground stopped shaking. Sarah Martinez and the other colonists looked at their screens in amazement as a single ship faced down the entire Zaxker fleet. Admiral Tharkath's scales darkened with rage. "Launch all fighters. Use the dimensional disruptors. I want that ship destroyed." But the Prometheus moved like nothing they had ever seen. It didn't fly through space. It slid between dimensions, appearing and disappearing at will. Zaxker weapons, advanced as they were, couldn't touch it. "Very well," Torres said calmly. "Lieutenant Wong, activate the dimensional field." A wave of 7th dimensional energy pulsed from the Prometheus. When it touched the Zaxker ships, they didn't explode. Instead, their weapons and engines simply stopped working, frozen between dimensions. Admiral Tharkath watched in horror as his mighty fleet drifted helpless in space. On every ship, power systems failed as 7th dimensional physics rewrote the rules they operated on. In the colony below, cheers erupted from the bunkers. Sarah Martinez hugged her children tightly, tears of relief in her eyes. Through the bunker's screens, they could see their crystalline savior hovering in orbit, its surface shimmering with impossible light. The galaxy's laughter had just died in its throat. News of the Prometheus spread across the galaxy faster than light. In the Galactic Council's emergency chamber, beings of all species watched the recordings from New Eden. The crystalline ship moved through space like water through air, untouchable and unstoppable. "Impossible," whispered High Counselor Vathek, his energy form flickering with distress. "Their ship, it exists in all dimensions at once." Dr. Sarah Chen stood calmly before the council, no longer the quiet observer they had mocked. "The Prometheus is humanity's first 7th dimensional vessel," she announced. "As you can see, it operates differently from conventional ships." On the massive screens around them, more footage played. A Zaxker battleship fired its most powerful weapons at the Prometheus. The beams passed through the crystalline hull like light through glass, hitting nothing. "But how?" demanded Zaxera, the crystalline being's facets dark with confusion. "Your species barely understood basic space travel a century ago." "We understood more than we showed," Chen replied. "While you built bigger engines and stronger weapons, we looked for simpler answers. The 7th dimension isn't about power, it's about perspective." In another part of space, the Prometheus continued its mission. Captain Torres stood on his bridge, watching as his ship phased through the Zaxker blockade around Haven Colony. Their weapons were useless against a vessel that could shift between dimensional states at will. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Wong, "the enemy is launching their new dimensional disruptors." The Zaxker had rushed their most advanced weapons into service. Dark energy beams designed to tear holes in space itself shot toward the Prometheus. Torres didn't even need to give an order to evade. "Fascinating," said Chief Engineer Kumar, studying his readings. "Their weapons are trying to disrupt our dimensional state, but they don't understand how we operate. It's like trying to catch water with a fork." The Prometheus slid between dimensions, its crystalline structure adapting instantly to each state. Where other ships fought against the universe's laws, the Prometheus worked with them. It was the difference between breaking down a door and finding the key. Back in the council chamber, debates rage. "This changes everything," declared a gaseous entity. "If humans can build more ships like this." "We can," Chen confirmed. "The Prometheus is just the first. Even now, more vessels are under construction within Jupiter." The council members shifted uncomfortably. They had laughed at humanity's primitive technology, never suspecting that Earth had discovered something revolutionary. Their mighty fleets, their advanced weapons, all useless against ships that could move through 7 dimensions. At Haven Colony, Torres decided to demonstrate more of the Prometheus's capabilities. "Kumar, activate the phase field," he ordered. A shimmer spread from the ship, enveloping the nearby Zaxker vessels. Their weapons didn't just stop working. They began to phase out of normal space, trapped between dimensions. The mighty warships hung helpless in space, their crews unable to even send distress signals through the dimensional barrier. "Message from Earth Command," Wong announced. "The Zaxker Empire is calling for emergency negotiations. They're withdrawing from all human colonies." Torres nodded. The Prometheus had proved its point without destroying a single enemy ship. That was the true power of 7th-dimensional technology. It made conventional warfare obsolete. In the Galactic Council chamber, Dr. Chen allowed herself a small smile as the beings who had mocked humanity now argued about how to respond to this new power. They had laughed at humans for thinking differently, for seeking simpler solutions. They weren't laughing anymore. The Galactic Council's grand chamber felt different now. Where once there had been laughter and mockery, now there was nervous silence. Representatives from 100 advanced civilizations watched as Dr. Sarah Chen prepared to address them. Behind her, a hologram showed the Prometheus in action, its crystalline form shifting through dimensions as easily as light through a prism. The ship that had changed everything. "Members of the Council," Chen began, her voice calm but firm. "You asked for this emergency session to discuss humanity's 7th-dimensional technology. I'm here to tell you that the Prometheus is just the beginning." Murmurs spread through the chamber. High Counselor Vathek's energy form pulsed with concern. "What do you mean, just the beginning?" Chen gestured, and a hologram changed. It showed Jupiter's atmosphere, where massive construction facilities had suddenly become visible. 3 more crystalline ships were taking shape, each larger than the Prometheus. "While you watched Earth's surface for signs of advancement, we built in plain sight," Chen explained. "Humans don't just use 7th-dimensional technology. We understand it in ways your species never considered." A representative from the Zaxker Empire, their scales still dark with shame from their recent defeat, spoke up. "How? How did primitives master something we couldn't even detect?" Chen smiled. "Because you think too linearly. Your civilizations are older, your technology more advanced in traditional ways. But humans have always been good at seeing patterns others miss. We didn't force the dimensions to bend to our will. We learned how they naturally flow." In deep space, the Prometheus continued its patrol of the human colonies. Captain Torres received the transmissions from the council meeting, watching as humanity's true power was revealed. "The Prometheus project taught us something interesting," Chen continued. "Humans have a natural ability to perceive and adapt to higher dimensions, What your species tried to achieve with massive engines and complex mathematics, we discovered through observation and understanding. The council chamber erupted in chaos. Species that had once laughed at humanity now scrambled to propose alliances. Others demanded access to the technology, offering trades and deals. Earth is willing to collaborate, Chen announced, bringing order back to the chamber. But first, you need to understand what this means. The galaxy isn't just changing. It already has changed. She waved her hand again, and the hologram showed something new. Plans for massive structures that seem to exist in multiple dimensions at once. These are our designs for dimensional gateways. They will revolutionize travel, communication, and energy production across the galaxy. The council members stared in amazement. What they had dismissed as primitive science had suddenly leaked beyond their understanding. But Dr. Chen, asked Zexera, its crystalline form dimming with worry, why reveal all this now? Why show us your plans? Because true power isn't about keeping secrets, Chen replied. It's about understanding. Humanity doesn't want to rule the galaxy. We want to help it grow. On the Prometheus, Torres smiled at her words. This was what made humans different. They hadn't developed this technology to dominate. They had developed it to explore, to understand, to connect. Back in the council chamber, Chen made her final point. The laughter has stopped, she said, looking around the room. Now it's time for real dialogue, real cooperation, real progress. The beings who had once mocked humanity sat in silence, realizing that everything had changed. They hadn't just underestimated human technology, they had underestimated human potential. And this was only the beginning. Captain Torres stood in Earth's new dimensional command center, watching holographic displays of the 4 crystalline ships now patrolling human space. The Prometheus had been joined by her sister ships, Athena, Apollo, and Atlas. Each vessel shimmered with 7th-dimensional energy, untouchable and powerful. The question isn't what we can do, Admiral Jackson said, addressing the gathered military and civilian leaders. The question is what we should do. The room fell silent. On the screens, reports streamed in from across the galaxy. Dozens of civilizations were requesting alliances with Earth. Others offered vast resources for access to 7th-dimensional technology. The Zaxkir Empire had surrendered unconditionally. Dr. Chen sat quietly at the conference table, her eyes on Captain Torres. Miguel, she said, using his first name, you've commanded Prometheus through this crisis. What do you think? Torres stepped forward, choosing his words carefully. We have power that no other species can match, he said. But I've seen what power does to civilizations. The Zaxkir became conquerors. The Council became arrogant. We could easily follow the same path. Some would say we already have. Lieutenant Wang added from her seat. We deceived the galaxy for years, building our fleet in secret. The room's mood darkened. Earth's greatest triumph also carried the seeds of potential corruption. They had the power to dominate the galaxy completely. No conventional weapons could touch their ships. No defenses could stop them. Perhaps, said Dr. Rodriguez, the scientist who had first discovered the 7th-dimensional principles, we should share our knowledge freely. Let all species benefit from this breakthrough. And if they use it for weapons, Admiral Jackson countered, not everyone will see this technology as we do. Torres walked to the center of the room. Above him, the holographic ships continued their silent patrol. When we built Prometheus, he said, we named her after the one who gave fire to humanity. But remember what happened to Prometheus in the myth. He was punished by the gods, Chen nodded, for giving too much power too quickly. The debate continued for hours. Some argued for using their advantage to reshape the galaxy, to force peace through superior power. Others wanted to withdraw, to let humanity develop separately with their advanced technology. Finally, Torres spoke again. We discovered this power because we thought differently, he said. We saw patterns others missed. Maybe that's our real responsibility. Not to rule or hide, but to teach. Dr. Chen smiled. To show others how to see what we see. Exactly, Torres continued. We don't need to give them our technology. We need to help them understand how we got here. Share the perspective, not just the power. The room grew quiet as his words sank in. It wasn't about dominance or isolation. It wasn't even about the technology itself. It was about understanding. We start small, Admiral Jackson finally agreed. Training programs, joint research projects. Show them how humans think about dimensions differently. And the ships? Wong asked. We keep them, Torres said firmly. Not as weapons, but as guardians. To protect those who are learning, and to remind everyone that power isn't about destruction. It's about potential. As the meeting ended, Torres looked again at the holographic ships. They were beautiful, these crystalline vessels that had changed everything. But the real beauty wasn't in their power. It was in what they represented. Humanity's ability to see the universe differently. The galaxy had stopped laughing at humans. Now it was time to show them why understanding was more important than power. 1 year after the Prometheus first revealed humanity's true power, the galaxy had changed beyond recognition. The Grand Hall of the New Earth Dimensional Academy buzzed with activity as beings from 100 different species gathered for graduation day. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the podium, looking out at the diverse crowd. Crystalline beings sat next to energy forms, while gaseous entities floated above traditional organic species. All of them were here to learn humanity's way of seeing dimensions. When I first stood before the Galactic Council, Chen began, they laughed at what they thought was human primitiveness. Today, we laugh together at how limited all our viewpoints once were. In orbit above Earth, Captain Torres watched from the Prometheus's observation deck. 4 more crystalline ships had joined the original fleet, but they were no longer weapons of war. Instead, they served as training vessels, helping other species understand 7th-dimensional travel. Captain, Lieutenant Wong called, the first non-human crew has successfully completed their dimensional navigation trial. Torres smiled. It had taken months of training, but a mixed crew of aliens had finally learned to pilot a small crystalline shuttle through dimensional space, not by forcing their way through, but by understanding the natural flows between realities. Back in the Academy Hall, Chen continued her speech. Today, we celebrate not just your graduation, but a new understanding of our universe. Each of you has learned to see dimensions as humans do, not as barriers to break, but as paths to follow. The holographic displays behind her showed the progress. The first alien-built 7th-dimensional vessels were taking shape in shipyards across the galaxy. They weren't copies of human ships. Each species had adapted the technology to their own understanding and needs. But this is just the beginning, Chen announced. Today, we reveal humanity's next step. The holograms change, showing massive structures taking shape between the stars. The Dimensional Gateway Network, she explained. A new way of connecting our civilizations through the higher dimensions. In the audience, High Counselor Vuthek's energy form brightened with interest. The former critic of humanity had become one of their most dedicated students. These gateways, he asked, they will allow instant travel between any points in the galaxy. Better, Chen smiled. They will allow us to understand each other in ways we never could before. When you travel through dimensional space, you don't just move. You see reality from new perspectives. The design showed structures that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, creating paths not just through space, but through different ways of perceiving reality itself. On the Prometheus, Torres received the first test data from the Gateway prototypes. The results were beyond even their expectations. It seems, he told his crew, that humanity had barely scratched the surface of what's possible. In the Academy Hall, Chen reached the end of her speech. 1 year ago, the galaxy stopped laughing at humanity. Today, we invite you to laugh with us, not at each other's differences, but at how long it took us all to see the simple truths in front of us. The gathering erupted in applause, each species expressing joy in their own way. Energy beings pulsed with light, crystalline forms chimed harmoniously, and organic beings cheered. As Chen looked out at the celebration, she remembered the quiet smile she had worn in that first council meeting. Humanity hadn't just changed the galaxy's technology, they had changed its perspective. The future, she concluded, isn't about who has the most advanced technology or the greatest power. It's about who can see the most possibilities, who can understand the most perspectives. The laughter that filled the hall wasn't mockery now. It was the sound of species coming together, learning to see the universe through each other's eyes. And somewhere in the seventh dimension, new patterns waited to be discovered.